Hello and welcome to Center for Victory's podcast of Your Best Day Yet. At Center for Victory, we're here to help unlock, reinforce, and enrich relationships through personal and professional development. I'm Eric Guy, Chief Victory Officer here at Center for Victory. Again, back once again, thank you, is our guest, Marissa Host. We've been talking the past couple times that she's graced us with her presence about one of our favorite books. And it's glad to see she's much younger than I am, but the biology of belief, we've been talking about that. Last time we talked about, we first started talking about, the cells in our bodies and things like that. Last time we talked about the environment and how important that is. So this time I'd like to get into, I guess for a lack of better terms, good vibes and bad vibes. Like, there was a Beach Boy song years ago. I'm getting a good vibration. Like, I don't know all the words to that, but essentially, when you think of, relationships, good environments, we talked about good environments last time, as that vibratory level. But before we get into all this, because I'm already excited, just remind people again what you do and, kind of all your background and good stuff, please.
Sure. Yes. So thank you for having me again. My background is being a nurse for about a decade. Super passionate about hospice care, geriatrics, dementia, Alzheimer's, and end of life being my passion. Got really interested in forming end of life for patients and therefore identifying in my own life how I can eventually have a great end of life and what that takes throughout my own life now. And so just super passionate about all of this stuff, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm excited that you keep coming back, because there's, like I said, there's not too many people that want to chat with me about this. I know you got your notes in front of you, and before we started, you're like, "Hey, I think you're gonna, make fun of me because of my notes." I'm like, "Nah, not really." I mean, I just because it's like all these things. This is where a lot of this started for us. I mean, that book that I have. I mean, you have a
much newer
version, and what we're talking about is The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. That really impacted me because of what I was doing. Not only what I was doing, but what we were going through at the time, with my very healthy wife, who was a little bit younger than what you are now. She had a stroke when she was pregnant with our daughter. And, I was looking for answers, and not the answers that everybody was giving me.
Yes.
And I was like, there has to be something else out there. And I already knew I already knew that there had to be something different because of what was going on with, the kids I had in treatment, the family that I was seeing. I didn't know exactly why it was working, what I was doing.
Yeah.
But the more and more I researched, and, in some of his research, I still put in my presentations today. I mean, because it's very important to understand that. And so, I have a strong passion for health, and that's why I've invited you on, and hopefully you'll keep coming back. But I thought we'd dive more into the discussion regarding relationships. We kind of hit on it last time, I believe, in the last podcast when we were talking about structuring your environment, and, how that could ultimately lead to better health, performance, and things like that. So, I guess the example that I have, like, to get us started, and you could think about maybe an example from your past. I mean, for me, I always talk about, and I wrote in my book about my grandmother, right? Wow. I mean, today I most likely probably would have been taken out of like a regular school and put in someplace that would contain me a little bit better. But what was funny is I always found myself listening to her for the most part. Like, never gave her a hard time. At least I don't think I did. As hard of a time, maybe I should say, but yeah. But she was just, for me, super chill. That's the best way to explain it. And she just threw off. I know she cared about me.
Mhm.
Like when we did something wrong, it was funny because she would be like, "Go get a switch." We'd have to pick our own switch.
Yeah.
But what was funny about it is when we would bring it to her, she would never hit us with it.
Mhm.
Now I can remember that
Mhm.
to this day,
Mhm.
right? And there's a lot to unpack there,
Sure.
about forgiveness and
Oh, yeah.
just unconditional love and everything. And then she would just smile at us
Mm.
and set it down and give us a hug. And it was incredible. But
Very impactful for you to this day, I can tell.
but the older I got, the more I listened to her.
Mhm.
And this is a lady who wrote me, I would say, at least once a week while I was in
Wow.
college. But I listened to her.
Mhm.
That's the difference. And when you can think about, somebody that's really thrown off good vibes versus bad vibes, there are a lot of people that I didn't listen to. And I mean, I'm not saying it was all them. I mean,
Mhm.
some of it was me.
Sure.
Maybe a big part, but she just stayed in a, for lack of a better term, in a frequency wave
Sure.
that I responded to. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you have an example, good, bad, or otherwise, from your past that
Sure.
impacted you.
I think mine's more current.
Okay.
I have a good friend who we have very little in common, but we are our energies are she just builds me up
Okay.
every day, very consistent. She sees me for who I am. I don't feel like I have to put this wall up for her. I can take down the ego. I can be who I am. She is my hype woman. I know that's an odd.
Hype woman.
she's
I need that.
no matter what it, like if I were going for something, a goal, she'd be there. Like just cheer me on. And to me, she's one of the most influential people in my life, and I still talk to her every single day to this day. So she's great. She's good vibes.
Yeah.
Good vibes. And I feel like good and bad vibes is I think that's a very new thing to say, but I don't want people to discount the weight of it. It's
Mhm.
a lot of people say, oh, sending good vibes, and some people don't respond to that, but it's real stuff.
Yeah, it's very real. I
Mhm.
mean, to the point, there's a lot of other research that has come after he's from other researchers that have said, hey, look, these are things that exist.
Mhm.
Like, and it's one of the things that I talk to leaders about,
Mhm.
because I don't, especially nowadays, I don't think you can be an effective leader inside of a company or in a community or even in your home if you don't understand this.
Sure.
I mean, you think about what you do, like for this young lady that you're talking about, your friend. What would you do for her?
Anything. I would do anything. She makes me want to be a better person.
Yeah.
And pour into her life and work on my own energies and vibrations and all of that. So I want to be a better person because I know her. So that's what she does for me.
Mhm.
She propels me. She brings joy to my life. And so, yeah, good vibes.
Yeah. And think about somebody, I don't know if you've ever had somebody that's thrown off really bad vibes, whether it was a boss. I know you said
I did.
last podcast you jumped it's hard.
It's hard. It's hard. And we've all experienced it. Bad vibes,
Yeah.
bad energy from someone. It's very off-putting, very icky. Yeah, I've had some. I feel like if I reveal too much, they'll know who they are.
Yeah.
So
Okay. We don't have to say any names. But do you other than this friend of yours, do you have anybody else that you're intentional about being around that give you that kind of lift? I like that title, by the way. Hype woman.
Hype woman.
Man, hype woman. I think we all need a hype woman.
We do. We all need. Her name is Tiffany.
Okay.
We all need a Tiffany.
Yeah.
I would say, again, going back to that inner circle.
Yeah.
Which we have a lot of great influences in that circle, and we're very intentional about who's in it. So those people in the circle, I feel like you and Tammy are. We want to keep you there. And so we're very intentional about learning from the people in our circle. I could name off multiple names. I don't know if I want to, but these people have successful families. They have risen above adversity. They have maintained positive outlooks on life despite horrible and tragic things happening. I look up to them in a lot of ways. And so they, to me, put off great energy, and it carries through generationally in their families. And so I see that, and I want to learn to be more like them. So
now I know you sent me a text.
I did
in preparation for this, and it kind of mapped out those energy levels, the negative vibe versus a positive vibe.
Yeah. So I looked into, I mean, I like to see things. I like to compare them to things that I can visualize.
Yeah.
The ocean.
Yeah.
We've all seen the ocean, or if you haven't, you should. Hopefully you have. The waves are energy. And when you have two positive energies, two positive waves coming near each other, when they meet, it produces more energy, more positivity. Whereas if you have a negative and a positive approaching, so if I'm with someone negative and I carry a positive vibe, they flatline. They cancel each other out. No energy is produced. So I found that very interesting, where you meet somebody anywhere in a coffee shop and you feel like you resonate with them. That's you're creating that positive energy, and you're communicating. You're building community in that way as well. So I found that very, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, probably is going to take us off topic a little bit here, but I mean, I'm just thinking about, that other person being an impact on somebody else. So you being an impact on me, we being an impact on a community.
Oh, yeah.
That community, town, city, whatever. And I think you can go into a lot of those places.
Sure.
You can feel that. You can sense it. Your spidey sense kind of goes up. It's tingling. You can feel it when it's good. You can feel it when it's bad. But again, going back to, a leader. I mean, parents need to hear this. Leaders need to hear this. Like, nobody wants to really work for you. You can make them because you're giving them a paycheck.
Sure.
But if you're vibrating at a high level, it's easier to get people to do things.
Sure.
Because it's a frequency level, and it's, I don't want to get too nerdy here, but since you're here, we'll do that. They refer to it as entrainment. It's a process of physiologic alignment that happens. And when we're living in that, I before we get on here, I told you the story about a family that I visited with that dog, right? And this was a massive dog, man, way over 200 pounds. And I was with the family for 3 days. And when I was leaving, they actually said, "Hey, look, you're the first man other than the husband and the son that's ever been in this home that this dog has not bitten." And what was funny about that is this dog, after the first day, followed me around like a little puppy. And the young teenage boy that was there actually kept commenting on it. He was like, "Oh, you're going to the dark side," like meeting me.
You influenced him in that way.
Right. And that was very impactful for that boy too, to see, look, these are, but animals, especially kids, are very, they can't articulate it all the time.
Well, I think that's some of the problem is we've learned that language is the first and foremost. What I say is who I am, where that's not always the case. You can have someone saying who they are, but you're picking up a different vibe.
Yeah.
So a lot of, that's a lot of Western, that's a very Western culture thing. A lot of Eastern cultures really teach that to their children, to pick up, to trust their gut, trust that instinct. Whereas we are like, oh no, don't trust that. It's very interesting.
Well, not only that is it interesting, I think it gets us in a lot of trouble as adults because then we don't trust it. It's like, well, I knew better. Or there was something there. I shouldn't have walked down that alley or shouldn't have walked in that, whatever it was, that establishment. You have to, you really have to pay attention to it. And think about that process of physiologic alignment. You have that ability. through that connection to bring that vibe up
Sure.
in your whole home. You can set and my daughter Faith, when she was very young, and again, she didn't know all this yet. What did she used to say? When dad's angry, everybody's angry.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, there's a lot of truth to that.
There is.
All right. But I remember she and I were out in Utah one time. She went out and she was sitting with me as I was giving a presentation. So she was sitting kind of right behind me, and the whole time, and I actually I saved it. I scanned it. I have the picture that she was drawing during that time. And for some reason, I don't know if somebody in the crowd asked her. She was 10, right? So she's tiny. And she was just like, she was just, hey, I'm on a trip. It's like, you didn't think she was you didn't think she was paying attention. And then somebody asked her a question, and she says, well, what my dad talks about is like a boomerang. Whatever you're going to throw out, it comes right back at you. And I was like, let's just end there.
Mic drop. That's great. As a 10-year-old.
Yeah. And that's what she was writing.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah.
It blew my mind. That's why
amazing.
I scanned it and, I've saved it. It was just like, well, here's a bunch of professionals in a room. And there were a lot of people in that room that time. But, I mean, she was back there just soaking it all in. Yeah. And it didn't look like she was paying attention. Right. But, the people that you really love to be around. So you talked about that inner circle, but the people that you really love to be around and that bring you that high vibe or that, what advice would you give our audience about, one, what to avoid? Let's do that first. And then second, kind of 4 or 5 things to make sure that you look for in relationships to keep that vibe high. So first, what to avoid.
I think trust your gut. Okay. Avoid the things that trust your gut. That's a very common saying, but trust that instinct. It is an instinct.
It's good advice.
Trust it. You may not always be correct, but I would say 99% of the time you are going to be correct. Avoid those things. General negativity, that encompasses a large portion of what we're talking about, but do they talk poorly about others? Do they talk poorly about other people's successes?
Yeah.
Do they talk poorly about you? Do they not support you? I think there's a lot to be said about people who talk poorly about others in your presence, because they're likely doing the same for you. And I think avoiding people who are just generally unregulated and unhealthy. Sometimes that's hard because you want to love them, but they can really influence your energy and drain you.
Yeah.
And
Tammy and I say we love those people from afar.
Maybe more than an arm's length at times. But
Big
way more yes. Away. You can love them. You don't have to let them into your life.
Right.
You can protect your life and your family from those negative influences. And we all have examples of those people who maybe have had a negative influence or tried in our family. So those are some things I think to avoid as far as vibration.
What do you think 4 or 5 things to make sure you look for in relationships to keep that vibe high?
I think let's just flip it. Positive. They speak positively about their situation. I know in our last podcast, we talked about people who are going through some sort of adversity, a death in the family. They go through negative things, but they remain positive. They expect positivity. They speak positively about others. They speak positively about you, about themselves. And that's huge. That's huge because that does affect you, and then you affect others. Definitely maintaining a positive outlook. Then we can talk about people being healthy, just generally healthy in their emotions, their holistic self, eating well, getting outside, all of those things. Those stick out to me.
Yeah. I think one big thing that, if you're going to relationships that are at a high vibe, and I see a lot of this happening in a negative way in relationships, and people just stay stuck in relationships. And you mentioned it a little bit, but I want to highlight it, is, when people can't be happy for us, or you can't be happy for them, then you're the negative one.
Mm-hmm.
But like celebrate those wins. I mean, that's
Sure.
one of our actual core values, more cowbell. We celebrate wins. We're happy for one another. But I see too many people, and I've been in those kind of relationships when people aren't happy for your success.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it just weighs on you. And it's like, well, they're not that bad of a person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, if they
Right.
can't be happy for your success,
Mm-hmm.
they're really not a friend. And
Right.
they're not boosting that vibe up for sure.
Exactly.
So anything else that you could think of, or anything nerdy that you got in your notes there?
Oh, don't make fun of my notes. No, I think that we need to be self-aware of our own energies as well.
Yeah.
Really taking care of capturing negative thoughts in their tracks. And, we need to really assess who we are to others. Are we bringing others up, or are we bringing them down? And I don't know what that looks like for everybody, but just really being self-aware and, like I said, capturing those negative thoughts, stopping them in their tracks and seeing why you're acting that way. And sometimes that takes a deep dive and it can take some work, but we want to be a positive influence to others. So,
yeah, I know my son's going to cringe when he hears this, but, back in the day, I remember in computer class, like this thing they called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, GIGO.
Yeah.
Right. And he just rolls his eyes when I said GIGO. Dad, come on, man. It's like, one, I've never heard that. And I think you're just making it
I've
up.
never heard it.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure I heard it. But
if not, that's great.
Good things in, good things out. Right. I mean, we talked to, if you haven't heard it yet, for listeners, go back and the last podcast we did on the environment, your language, the music, in getting in nature, having that, but really making sure you have people that are at that high vibe level. I mean, get yourself a hype woman.
Yeah,
or hype
Tiffany.
Man. Yeah, get yourself a Tiffany. I can't wait to meet Tiffany as a hype woman.
You'll
So
love
I'm
her.
gonna call her hype. All right, that's a compliment, Tiffany, if you're listening.
Yes.
So anything else you'd like to add? I got a little poem here that I'd like to end with. If you don't have anything else,
go ahead.
Good. All right, it's I think when we look at promoting growth, the best thing for that's love. So this is actually a poem from Rumi. It says, a lifetime without love is of no account. Love is the water of life. Drink it with heart and soul. That's pretty good stuff.
It is.
So with that, we'll end there. Hope you enjoyed it. The final word there, shift your lives into growth whenever possible so you can thrive. Focus on your relationships, live at that high vibratory level. If you have any more questions or want to get in contact with us, we're at centerforvictory.com. And just remember, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, make this your best day yet. We'll see you again.